Hey there, welcome back to the Steel City Sports Podcast, and today we're going to be talking about the NFL Super Bowl Contenders, and this will be the final video in our NFL tiers list. So, Contenders, I feel like the word contender is thrown around way too much in sports. For me, I try to keep the Contenders list as small as possible. These are the teams that I genuinely believe have a legit shot at the championship. Some of the other teams in the lower tiers, I could see them maybe doing it, but a lot of things would have to go right. They'd have to get some injury breaks against other teams. They'd have to just play really well. These are the ones that if they're hoisting the Lombardi, I wouldn't be surprised. I could really see it happening. So let's get into it now. And let's just get the obvious one right out of the way, the reigning Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I had my problems with the Chiefs roster going into this past year. Obviously, lost Tyreek Hill, your number one weapon. You lost the Honey Badger, who up until that point, I believed was the Chiefs' heart and soul of their defense. So, I had some problems with the makeup of their roster, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. They started like 6 or 7 rookies at key positions. That's kind of why I picked the Chargers to win the division last year. I knew that they would still be good. I mean, as long as Mahomes is there, they're still going to be good. But I thought that they'd take a step back, not be quite as dominant as they once were. And somehow they still had like the 5th scoring defense in the NFL. So I give them a lot of credit for their scheming on that side of the ball. And then offensively, I mean, the conventional wisdom at this point in time is to just not pick against the Chiefs. I mean, they've proven, especially this past season, I mean, they just really showed that this is their league at this point in time. This is the Kansas City Chiefs league. Patrick Mahomes, I think, is on a different tier than any other quarterback in the NFL right now. The supporting cast he has in terms of his weapons is significantly lackluster compared to any other elite quarterback in the NFL right now, except for maybe like Lamar. But you look at Travis Kelce, of course, he's great. But look at like Joe Burrow has 3 incredible receivers to throw the ball to. Justin Herbert, I think, has 3 really good. Now that they got Quentin Johnston, they have 3 really good receivers. Look at Mahomes' receivers. It's Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Kadarius Toney. And like I said, Kelce's obviously there too. But just looking at the receivers alone is very lackluster. It doesn't matter who's on the field, who's catching passes. I could catch passes from Mahomes. As long as you give him a good line, give him time to, let the play develop, he is going to find the right play. He's incredible. And that's why the Chiefs are on top of the world right now. That's why the conventional wisdom now is to just never doubt the Chiefs. And our next team in this tier is the Cincinnati Bengals. This is the only team in the AFC that has really given the Chiefs issues over the last, over the Mahomes era. You obviously had Brady defeating Mahomes in Mahomes' first year in 2018 in Arrowhead. You take that out, though. Outside of Tom Brady, Joe Burrow is the only NFL quarterback to defeat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. That's just an insane stat, but it is true. He defeated them back in 21 in Arrowhead. I think still is the crowning achievement of Joe Burrow's career was going toe-to-toe and beating Mahomes at Arrowhead to go to the Super Bowl was incredible. And they've gone to back-to-back AFC championship games. They were just in it this past year, and they had a pretty, I think, impressive playoff run this year despite, not getting back to the Super Bowl. They absolutely bludgeoned the Buffalo Bills on the Bills' home field. And I know that they lost some players. They lost Jesse Bates, one of their more productive players. But if you're going to pay T. Higgins, if you're going to pay Jamar Chase, if you're going to try to keep this potent offense together, you're going to have to make sacrifices. I think it's actually a pretty smart move to move off of safety in order to keep some more integral pieces there. And they obviously brought in Orlando Brown, who is a Pro Bowl left tackle. We all know the biggest issue for the Bengals over the Burrow era. Their biggest weak spot has been their offensive line. And the past 2 off seasons, they've went out and made acquisitions to try to build that up. You obviously have Jonah, blanking on his last name. I think it's Jonah Williams, who they drafted. He's really good. Last offseason, they brought in Lael Collins. And then this offseason, they brought in Orlando Brown Jr. And not only did you're getting his talent, but you also took him away from the Chiefs. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there. So Joe Burrow, I think he is the second best quarterback in the NFL. I think he's the closest to Mahomes, although Mahomes, I think, at this point in time kind of has a comfortable lead on Burrow. But the Bengals, they're the biggest threat in the AFC to the Chiefs. They have a really good pass rush. They're just a really well-constructed, well-rounded team with an elite quarterback. So the next team in this tier is the San Francisco 49ers. They're in a bit of a unique spot because every other team in this tier has an elite quarterback. So they're kind of unique in that way. And I think it is kind of a catch-22 in the fact that you don't have an elite quarterback, but you have all these elite playmakers on both sides of the ball. It's kind of a trade-off. It's like, do you want a Pro Bowler in literally every other position on the field, or do you want an elite quarterback? And they obviously took a big swing trying to get Trey Lance. If Trey Lance would have actually hit and been good, the Niners, I think, would have won multiple Super Bowls. That's how good their roster is. They have literally a Pro Bowler in every single unit. They have arguably the best. I think they have a pretty good argument for the best collection of offensive talent in the NFL. Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, one of the best 1-2 wide receiver punches in the NFL. George Kittle, one of the most complete, versatile players in the NFL, top 3 tight end at worst. Christian McCaffrey, the best running back in the NFL. Trent Williams, the best left tackle in the NFL. They just check so many boxes in the important positions. And then, of course, you have that defense, which was monstrous last year. Nick Bosa having 18.5 sacks, being Defensive Player of the Year. He was my number 1 rated defensive player if you watched that video. I also had Fred Warner on that top 10 list. I think he's the best linebacker in the NFL. And they just seem to always find really good secondary position players. And then, of course, you have the coach, which brings this all together. Kyle Shanahan. I think you can make a legitimate case that Kyle Shanahan is the best head coach in the NFL. I really do believe that, because you look at the quarterback play that he's had over, his tenure in San Francisco, and you look at the games the Niners have been in. They've been to 3 NFC championship games. They've gone to a Super Bowl. They were leading late in that Super Bowl. They've done nothing but just make late playoff wins. You look at what the Niners were before Shanahan. They were an absolute train wreck, and how he's shifted this culture into the absolute juggernaut the 49ers are. And like I said, if they just had stable, consistently good quarterback play without the injuries, they would have a Super Bowl ring. And for our next team is the Buffalo Bills. Now, I will say the Bills are probably, out of the 5 teams that are in this tier, the Bills are the team that I'm probably the most worried about. I'm starting to see some cracks in the foundation of the Buffalo Bills. They've been an absolute offensive juggernaut. They can obviously put up points. They've been a really good defense, just a great complete team. They've won their division the past, 3 or 4 years now. All that being said, I'm starting to see some momentum shift in the opposite direction of the Buffalo Bills. Number 1. I'm not the biggest fan of Sean McDermott, and I would have been okay with them parting ways with Sean McDermott this offseason. If you would ask any Buffalo Bill fan, if you'd ask any member of the Bills front office, if they could just press a button, the button is we swap Sean McDermott for Brian Daboll. Every single one of those people are pressing that button. So I really, really do believe the departure of Brian Daboll did hurt this team, because you looked at Josh Allen. There was people putting Josh Allen over Patrick Mahomes as the best quarterback in the NFL. If not, they were having them neck and neck, like rate 1A, 1B. 1 year after Daboll goes, Josh Allen is now kind of consistently ranked as like the 3rd to 5th best quarterback in the NFL. I've seen him as low as 5. I put him at 3 on my list behind Burrow and Mahomes, obviously. So, and then number 2, you have some locker room concerns. Stephon Diggs does not seem happy. I don't know what to make of that, obviously. I mean, he said to the press he's not, there's no beef or anything. But of course he's going to say that to the press. So it's like, I'm starting to see some stuff that I don't like about Buffalo. All that being said, they still have the high-end talent to really compete. Until I see the Bills creator, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give them the respect that they have earned, because they have been an offensive juggernaut for years now. You look back over since Stephon Diggs and Allen have started playing together. I believe it's been, 3 seasons now. They've been to an AFC championship game. They've been in playoff games with the Chiefs. They just have too much talent on both sides of the ball for me to write them off just yet. So I'm leaving them in the Super Bowl contenders. And for our final team, we have the Philadelphia Eagles, the cream of the crop of the NFC, I believe. And they are the reigning NFC champions. You take everything I said about the 49ers roster and just add an elite quarterback to that. That's why the Eagles are so good. They have playmakers in every single position you could want. They have the best offensive line in the NFL. They have one of the best 1-2 punch receiver tandems in the NFL, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith. They have a really stable run game that they've been developing. I know that they lost Miles Sanders, but you can just plug in DeAndre Swift there. Jalen Hurts is, just one of the most dynamic players in the NFL. Because he has the run ability, of course, but he's also an extremely accurate thrower of the football. And especially, you look at his development year over year, he gets better every year he plays. And he was just runner-up for MVP. So I think Jalen Hurts is definitely someone to watch for MVP this year. Looking at their defense, they're basically the Philadelphia Bulldogs at this point with all the Georgia players they're getting. This Georgia defense has been one of the best college football defenses ever, and all they're doing is getting the best players from that defense. You, of course, have Jordan Davis they got last year. And this year, getting Jalen Carter is absolutely insane. I don't think people just quite understand how insane it is that a team that just went to the Super Bowl added potentially the best player in the class. I saw Jalen Carter at the top of countless people's mock draft boards, and he fell to 9 to Philadelphia. That's mind-boggling. And then, of course, you have a phenomenal surrounding cast around those players as well. Hassan Reddick just had a career year. He was incredible. Their secondary, I think you can contend. I know that they lost Gardner Johnson to Detroit, but they still have an elite secondary. I still think you can argue it's one of the best in the league with Darius Slay, James Bradbury, of course. And this team is just very complete. I will say, though, however, this is kind of a big year for Nick Sirianni. We're going to see just how good of a head coach Nick Sirianni is because he lost Shane Steichen, his offensive coordinator, who was massive for the development of Jalen Hurts. But that's going to do it. Let me know in the comments how you thought I did. Thanks for listening.